There comes a time in every person's life when they must decide whether their hours belong to the world or to themselves, whether their days will be consumed by noise or consecrated to purpose, whether their mind will remain a playground for distraction or become the disciplined engine of destiny. The difference between greatness and mediocrity is not found in birth or luck or fortune. It is found in the use of one's time. And therefore, the first law of power is this: protect your calendar like it is gold, for it is nothing less than the vault of your life. Your calendar is the visible reflection of your invisible discipline. It tells the truth your words often conceal. Show me how you spend your hours, and I will show you what you worship. For time is not merely the passing of days, it is the unfolding of your soul into form. To waste it is to bleed your future 1 second at a time. To master it is to command the very structure of destiny itself. You cannot lead nations, build empires, or shape worlds if you cannot lead the 24 hours placed in your hands each dawn. Each sunrise is life's greatest equalizer. Rich and poor alike receive the same allotment. But what separates the masters from the masses is how they guard it. The majority will scatter their time to the winds of emotion, impulse, and distraction. They will react to every noise, every demand, every fleeting desire, while the disciplined few will stand firm, directing each hour like a general, commanding his army. Understand this: emotional detachment is not coldness. It is composure. It is the refusal to let the whims of the moment decide the fate of your purpose. The man who is emotionally reactive is a slave. He may believe himself free, but he dances to the tune of every circumstance. One insult derails him. One disappointment poisons his day. One rejection breaks his focus. But the disciplined mind moves through storms like a ship guided by compass, not by waves. Every great achievement begins with the mastery of inner equilibrium. Until you learn to govern your own responses, you will remain the puppet of external conditions. The man who conquers himself, wrote Hill, is greater than he who conquers a city. To conquer oneself is to detach emotion from decision, reaction from reason, and impulse from intention. You must rise each morning with one clear command over your mind: I will not be moved by anything that does not serve my purpose. That is the oath of the disciplined mind. When I say protect your calendar, I mean far more than organizing appointments or blocking time. I mean protecting the temple of your mental energy from the thieves of attention. The greatest robbery in modern life is not of money, but of focus. The world has learned how to mine your attention the way men once mined gold, and unless you guard it fiercely, you will wake one day to find your purpose buried beneath trivialities. The calendar is a battlefield. Every blank space invites an invasion by the urgent, the emotional, the unnecessary. You must defend it with the vigilance of a sovereign protecting his throne. Every yes must be earned by fire. Every commitment must bow before the law of definiteness of purpose. Ask yourself, does this meeting, this conversation, this indulgence move me closer to my chief aim? If it does not, it is theft. If it does not build, it destroys. The undisciplined man confuses activity with progress. He fills his days with movement, but accomplishes nothing of meaning. He exhausts himself running in circles, mistaking motion for momentum. But the disciplined man acts only from intention. He understands that every decision must pass through the gate of purpose before it earns entry into his day. This is the first principle of mental discipline, the law of definiteness of purpose. Until you define your central aim, detachment is impossible, for the mind cannot detach from chaos until it is attached to clarity. The undirected mind must react to everything, for it has chosen nothing. But once you define your purpose with precision, all else becomes irrelevant. Purpose gives you the power to say no without guilt and yes without hesitation. It frees you from the tyranny of approval. It anchors your emotions in principle rather than perception. Most people are prisoners of social expectation. They live on the leash of other people's opinions. They fear to offend, to disappoint, to appear selfish. But the truth is this: the world will drain you until you learn to guard yourself. When you protect your time, you protect your life's creative power. When you protect your calendar, you declare to the universe that your destiny is not open to negotiation. Let us define the enemy clearly. The enemy is not the critic, nor the competition, nor the circumstance. The enemy is emotional reactivity, the untrained impulse to respond rather than to reflect, to defend rather than decide, to please rather than to progress. Reaction is the signature of weakness. Response is the mark of mastery. The reactive man allows his emotions to precede his reason. The disciplined man trains his reason to govern his emotion. It is said that emotion is energy in motion, but without discipline, it is chaos in motion. The man who cannot govern emotion cannot be trusted with power, for he will destroy in seconds what took years to build. Observe the downfall of leaders, the ruin of partnerships, the collapse of enterprises. They all begin with the loss of emotional control. One moment of anger, one word spoken in pride, one reaction to insult, and empires crumble. If you wish to be unstoppable, you must be unshakable. If you wish to be unshakable, you must be detached. Detachment is not the absence of feeling, it is the presence of higher awareness. It is to feel deeply but act wisely. It is to experience emotion but remain its master, never its servant. Let me reveal a truth that few accept. Your calendar reveals your character. You may preach discipline, but your schedule will betray you. For discipline is not a word, it is a structure of life. The successful man does not wait for inspiration. He builds systems that demand obedience to his purpose. His calendar is not a suggestion, it is a covenant. If you wish to predict a man's future, examine not his dreams, but his habits of time. For habits are the invisible architecture of destiny. Every hour you dedicate to your purpose strengthens your dominion over the inner world. Every hour you squander to emotion or distraction weakens it. You must become the architect of your own routine, designing it with intention, guarding it with conviction, executing it with precision. Each day must be built around the pillars of your purpose. The morning devoted to growth, the midday to execution, the evening to reflection. He who disciplines his time disciplines his mind. He who disciplines his mind disciplines his life. But discipline without detachment becomes tyranny. To master yourself, you must act with intensity but think with serenity. The balanced mind is like a sword kept sharp yet sheathed. It is ready for battle, yet governed by peace. You must cultivate the state I call mental neutrality, the ability to remain centered no matter what occurs. The neutral mind is the calm observer amid chaos, the still axis around which events revolve. It does not collapse under praise, nor panic under criticism. It simply perceives, decides, and moves forward. When you reach this state, emotion becomes your servant, not your master. Anger becomes energy for action. Fear becomes signal for preparation. Doubt becomes invitation to strength and conviction. The neutral mind does not reject emotion. It integrates emotion into intelligent action. This is the essence of self-discipline, not suppression, but sublimation. To suppress is to fight your own nature. To sublimate is to harness it. The disciplined mind channels desire into purpose, fear into prudence, pain into persistence. Many imagine discipline as punishment, but it is the highest form of freedom. For what greater freedom exists than to act according to your will, not your weakness, to direct your life according to reason, not reaction, to command your day according to plan, not impulse? Discipline liberates you from chaos. Detachment liberates you from dependence. Together they form the foundation of mastery. He who depends on mood will fail when moods change. He who depends on discipline will prevail even when the world collapses. Every man must learn the sacred art of withdrawing his attention from the unnecessary. What you withdraw attention from, you weaken. What you give attention to, you strengthen. If you constantly feed irritation, you grow reactive. If you constantly feed focus, you grow unstoppable. Protect your attention like a miser guards his fortune. Waste no thought on trivial matters, no emotion on transient insults. The truly great mind is selective. It spends itself only where return is certain. Understand that time is the currency of thought, and thought is the currency of creation. He who squanders his hours in emotional turmoil bankrupts his creative potential. He who invests them in purpose compounds his success beyond measure. To control your inner world is to become the sovereign of your destiny. The outer world will always remain uncertain, but the inner world can become a fortress built on calmness, ruled by clarity, guarded by discipline. When life strikes, as it inevitably will, your reaction determines your rank. The untrained mind will lash out, retreat, or despair. The trained mind will pause, observe, and act according to principle. Every delay in reaction expands your power. The moment between stimulus and response is the birthplace of mastery. In that instant, you decide whether to remain a slave to emotion or ascend as master of mind. So when the insult comes, delay your reaction. When the disappointment strikes, delay your judgment. When the fear arises, delay your retreat. In that pause lies the seed of transformation. Emotional detachment is the secret of composure under pressure, and composure under pressure is the mark of leadership. Remember this law. No man can command others who has not first commanded himself. If your mind is constantly agitated by the behavior of others, you are not a leader, you are a follower of emotion. But when you can remain calm while others panic, focused while others scatter, decisive while others doubt, you rise above the crowd and assume the natural authority of mastery. You must train yourself to view life not as an emotional experience, but as a strategic operation. Every decision must serve your definite chief aim. Every setback must be analyzed, not lamented. Every interaction must be weighed for value. Emotion clouds vision. Detachment clarifies it. The man who reacts from emotion sees only the surface of events. The man who responds from discipline sees the hidden law behind them. He understands that everything that happens is either a lesson or a test, and both are valuable. You cannot afford to live reactively in a world designed to provoke you. Every advertisement, every algorithm, every outrage is engineered to steal your focus and with it your future. But the disciplined mind sees through the manipulation and guards its gates. It knows that the cost of emotional reactivity is too high, for every reaction pulls you further from your purpose. Do not let the world's noise colonize your mind. Detach from the need to be involved in everything. The wise man does not chase every argument. He chooses his battles according to value, not vanity. When you are detached, you gain perspective. You see events not as threats, but as data. You respond not from emotion, but from understanding. Detachment gives birth to power because it frees energy from chaos. All emotional reactivity is energy scattered. All detachment is energy concentrated. The man who concentrates his energy can move mountains. The man who dissipates it cannot lift his own doubts. To master detachment, you must first master observation. Watch yourself. Watch your thoughts as they arise. Watch your emotions without judgment. You are not your anger. You are the awareness behind it. You are not your fear. You are the observer that sees it come and go. As you practice observation, reaction loses its hold. You begin to realize that between emotion and action lies choice, and that choice is the throne of freedom. You will know you are advancing when the same provocations that once disturbed you now pass like clouds across a vast sky. That is the mark of inner growth. But do not mistake stillness for passivity. The detached mind is not inactive, it is deliberate. Its stillness is strength held in reserve. Like a lion conserving energy before the strike, the disciplined mind acts only when the time is right. You must learn the rhythm of life, when to advance, when to retreat, when to speak, when to remain silent. Emotional people rush. Disciplined people wait. Waiting is not weakness, it is preparation. Remember the principle: impulse leads to error, intention leads to power. Each time you delay an emotional reaction, you strengthen the muscle of will, and willpower, once developed, becomes the invisible hand that shapes your fate. Your calendar, therefore, must become the external expression of this internal order. Every block of time should mirror your priorities. Every commitment should align with your purpose. Do not fill your days with other people's urgencies. Create space for thought, reflection, and silence. It is in silence that the mind aligns with truth. The undisciplined run to noise. The master returns to stillness. The world worships busyness, but the wise man worships clarity. He does not ask, "How much can I do today?" He asks, "What must be done to advance my purpose?" Protect your mornings as sacred ground. Guard your evenings as the temple of reflection. Schedule your day around what matters most, not what shouts loudest. If your calendar does not reflect your purpose, it reflects your confusion. You must understand, time is not to be managed, it is to be directed. Management implies reaction, Direction implies command. You are not to balance your schedule between purpose and distraction. You are to dedicate it entirely to purpose and eliminate distraction. To build such discipline requires training. You must treat your mind as an athlete treats his body with consistency, intensity, and rest. Every thought you allow strengthens or weakens your mental muscle. Start small. Control your first hour each morning. Refuse to let emotion, media, or trivial conversation invade it. Dedicate it to silence, study, planning, or creation. The man who owns his first hour will eventually own his life. From that foundation, expand. Take control of your responses throughout the day. When emotion rises, pause. When temptation appears, delay. Each victory, no matter how small, compounds your power. Soon, self-control becomes your nature. Detachment becomes your default. Discipline becomes your identity. And when that day arrives, you will have become a new being, not a creature of circumstance, but a creator of destiny. The true measure of mastery is not how loudly you conquer the world, but how silently you command yourself. For all outer victories are but reflections of an inner order. The man who has subdued his emotions, organized his thoughts, and consecrated his time has already conquered the most difficult kingdom of all the kingdom within. From that center, all power flows outward with precision. The weak seek control over others, the wise seek control over themselves. The reactive man wants to rule the world before he has ruled his impulses. The disciplined man knows that self-command is the foundation upon which all dominion rests. If you cannot command yourself to rise early, to think clearly, to delay gratification, to persevere through monotony, how will you command enterprises, men, and fate itself? Every empire begins with a man who mastered his mornings. The pattern is always the same. Before he mastered nations, he mastered habits. Before he led armies, he led thoughts. Before he influenced millions, he influenced his own imagination. For it is the mind that leads the man, and the man that leads the world. If you would build greatness, you must build in silence first. Withdraw from the noise of opinion, from the chatter of crowds, from the friction of small ambitions. Solitude is the workshop of destiny. In that stillness, plans form, faith gathers, conviction strengthens, and purpose hardens into command. The undisciplined fear solitude because in silence they meet themselves and they do not yet like what they find. But the disciplined mind seeks silence because in silence he meets his higher self and there he finds power. Emotional detachment is the door to that higher self. When you detach, you no longer identify with every passing mood or doubt. You become the observer of thought rather than its captive. You begin to see that emotion is not reality, it is interpretation. The same event that weakens one man can strengthen another. The difference lies not in the circumstance, but in the command center of the mind. Emotion is the raw material of motivation, but discipline is the mold. You must not seek to erase emotion, that would be to erase humanity. Instead, you must learn to direct it toward constructive ends. Anger transmuted becomes courage. Desire refined becomes ambition. Fear understood becomes preparation. Pain accepted becomes wisdom. All emotion is potential power. Discipline converts potential into performance. The average man lives as a reactor, a leaf blown by every gust of circumstance. One day he is hopeful, the next he is bitter. 1 hour he believes in himself, the next he doubts everything. His destiny shifts as easily as his mood. But the master is anchored. He may feel storms pass through him, yet he does not move with them. He remains calm in triumph and composed in adversity. His emotions serve him. They do not steer him. This calmness is not indifference. It is strength under control. To feel deeply yet act wisely is the highest form of intelligence. The reactive man strikes first and regrets later. The disciplined man endures, studies, decides, and then moves with finality. His calmness is not a lack of passion. It is passion governed by purpose. Every act of self-control increases the density of your will. It forges invisible armor around your spirit. When others rage, you remain composed. When others despair, you remain strategic. When others scatter, you stand. That composure is worth more than gold, for it turns chaos into opportunity. There is an ancient law hidden in plain sight. What you cannot detach from, you cannot master. Attachment clouds judgment, attachment enslaves perception. If you are emotionally attached to praise, you will be destroyed by criticism. If you are attached to outcome, you will fear effort. If you are attached to comfort, you will never taste greatness. True detachment is not withdrawal from life. It is engagement without dependence. It is to give your best effort without craving the result. It is to love your work without needing applause. It is to pursue success without losing peace. This is the equilibrium of all masters. Consider the sculptor. He must strike the marble with precision. If he swings too wildly in passion, he shatters his own creation. But if he restrains his hand completely, he creates nothing. The balance lies between emotion and control, between fire and form. So it is with the mind. Detachment gives the hand of thought its precision. Discipline gives it force. Together they shape destiny. There is no higher art than the governance of attention. The mind that cannot hold focus is a fortress without walls. Every distraction becomes an invader. But the man who can direct thought, as a commander directs soldiers, becomes unstoppable. He decides what enters consciousness and what is expelled. He feeds his mind only with what strengthens his faith, sharpens his reason, and expands his vision. Everything else he rejects without apology. That power of direction is what Napoleon Hill called auto-suggestion, the deliberate, conscious use of thought to condition the subconscious mind toward achievement. The undisciplined use of imagination breeds anxiety. The disciplined use of imagination breeds power. You must learn to speak to your own mind as a leader speaks to his troops with authority, clarity, and conviction. Every morning command it toward faith, precision, and confidence. Speak as if your word is law. Tell it what you will think, what you will feel, what you will become. The subconscious obeys repetition with absolute loyalty. When your inner dialogue becomes a declaration of mastery, your external life begins to mirror that declaration. What you say within becomes the architecture without. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve, wrote Hill. But he also warned that this power works both ways. Whatever the mind fears and doubts, it will also bring forth. Therefore, guard your mental speech as fiercely as you guard your calendar. The language of mastery is deliberate. The language of mediocrity is emotional. The master says, I will. The mediocre says, I feel. Feelings are servants, not commanders. Let them inform, but never decide. Accurate thinking is the cornerstone of all progress. The world is full of people acting on assumption, reacting to appearances, and confusing opinion with fact. The disciplined thinker separates emotion from evidence. He asks, is this true? Does it serve my purpose? Does it strengthen or weaken me? In this way, he builds a mind that cannot be manipulated. To be free, you must learn to think independently. Most men think through emotion and imitate through fear. They borrow beliefs from the crowd and call it wisdom. But the man who trains his intellect to examine facts without emotional distortion becomes immune to mass hysteria. He sees through propaganda, temptation, and manipulation alike. When you achieve accurate thinking, you no longer waste time fighting shadows. You direct your energy only toward what can be changed. That single habit saves years of futile struggle. This is why I tell you, protect your calendar like it is gold, because every hour lost to reaction, gossip, or needless argument is an hour stolen from creation. Every moment spent defending your ego is a moment taken from fulfilling your purpose. Every conversation driven by emotion instead of clarity robs you of power. Guard your mornings against emotional contagion. Guard your evenings against regret. Guard your days against the impulses of others. Let your calendar be sacred territory where only purpose may dwell. Each task you accept must serve one of three ends: growth, creation, or service. If it does not, it is vanity disguised as productivity. The disciplined man does not do everything. He does the essential things with excellence. He understands that success is not the result of addition, but of elimination. Most people chase success by doing more. The wise achieve success by doing less, but doing it better, deeper, and with greater alignment to their chief aim. You cannot master your mind while drowning in endless commitments. Focus is the art of intelligent neglect. Ignore 90% of the world so you may perfect the 10% that defines you. And remember, every yes carries a hidden no. When you say yes to distraction, you say no to discipline. When you say yes to emotion, you say no to reason. When you say yes to others' demands, you say no to your own destiny. Choose consciously, for every choice compounds. As you refine this art, your world will begin to change. You will notice how noise falls away, how chaos loses its grip, how once intimidating problems shrink under the light of calm analysis. The world will still test you, but you will respond with poise instead of panic. Calmness is the rarest form of power because it cannot be faked. It is the product of long training, of thousands of small victories over impulse. The calm man walks into the room and the storm obeys him. His silence commands more than others' shouting. His patience terrifies the impatient. His stillness unsettles the erratic. For calmness is control made visible. He who rules his emotions rules energy itself. For emotion is the fuel of creation, and those who waste it on reaction have none left for building. Detachment is the valve through which energy is preserved. Imagine the mind as a reservoir. Every emotional outburst, every reactive thought, every indulgence in resentment pokes a hole in that reservoir, draining your creative energy. The man of discipline seals these leaks through awareness and restraint. He keeps his reservoir full, and with that stored energy, he builds worlds while others argue. Never forget that energy, not time, determines output. Time wasted is forgivable if energy remains, but energy wasted in emotion is irretrievable. It poisons your sleep, distorts your perception, weakens your will. Therefore, guard your emotional energy as you would guard your blood. When the disciplined man faces betrayal, he does not descend into bitterness. He studies the lesson and strengthens his boundaries. When he faces loss, he does not drown in despair. He accepts the pain and converts it into wisdom. When he faces failure, he does not retreat into excuses. He dissects it with surgical precision and extracts progress. The reactive man curses life. The disciplined man cooperates with its laws, for he knows that the universe is impartial. It rewards mastery, not emotion. It respects effort aligned with principle, not complaint rooted in weakness. If you wish to gain the favor of fate, master the one thing fate respects: discipline of mind. Remember this eternal equation. Thought precedes action. Action precedes habit. Habit precedes destiny. To change destiny, begin with thought. And to change thought, begin with control. Control your input, for input becomes imagination. Control your imagination, for imagination becomes belief. Control your belief, for belief becomes action. Control your action, for action becomes your life. Every word you hear, every image you consume, every emotion you indulge in, all are programming your subconscious mind. Guard it as you guard your most precious treasure. If you would become invincible, feed your mind with power, truth, and serenity. Eliminate all input that excites weakness, gossip, fear, envy, outrage. These are poisons that corrode inner strength. Replace them with principles, purpose, and practice. It is said that men do not decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures. Therefore, your greatest task is not to predict tomorrow, but to discipline today. Each morning, begin as if your purpose were a sacred ritual. Train your body to obey, your mind to focus, your heart to endure. Each small act of consistency is a declaration of sovereignty. One day, without noticing, you will awaken to find that nothing disturbs you anymore. The opinions of others lose weight. The uncertainties of life lose threat. You will move through the world like a force of nature, calm, decisive, untouchable. That is the reward of discipline and detachment combined. Unshakable peace amid infinite movement. From that state, your success becomes inevitable. For when you can control yourself, you can control outcomes. When you can control outcomes, you no longer chase, you attract. The disciplined do not run after opportunity. Opportunity aligns itself to them. This is the mystery of mastery. When you cease reacting, the world begins responding. The truly great do not rush, for haste is the symptom of doubt. When you are certain of direction, you do not need speed, you need precision. The man of discipline moves like time itself, silent, steady, inevitable. He wastes no motion, no thought, no emotion. He conserves energy, not out of fear, but out of strategy. You will know that you are mastering yourself when stillness feels more powerful than reaction. The undisciplined equate movement with progress. The wise understand that restraint is a higher form of motion. It is the invisible hinge upon which great outcomes turn. Patience is not passivity, it is stored force. The man who can wait without wavering has already conquered half the battle. Life bends toward those who possess endurance. Every great dream demands gestation. Every plan of consequence requires incubation. The seed cannot demand the fruit before it takes root, but the impatient dig up their own harvest by refusing to trust the law of time. You must learn the discipline of divine delay, the ability to act without panic, to prepare without anxiety, to believe without visible evidence. For the universe does not reward the frantic, it rewards the faithful. Calm confidence is magnetic. It draws opportunity because it radiates certainty. People trust the composed man because he is rare. He moves like someone who has already decided what will happen, and that quiet conviction exerts influence beyond words. When you learn to sit in silence while others scramble, you will begin to notice that chaos always reveals its treasure to those who remain calm enough to perceive it. In every crisis, there are two kinds of men: the reactors who burn energy fighting the fire, and the thinkers who find the blueprint to prevent it from ever returning. The latter are few, but they are the builders of empires. You must never forget, energy is more valuable than effort. Anyone can expend effort. Few can preserve energy. Emotional detachment is the method by which you store power for decisive use. If you spend your mental strength fighting noise, you will have none left for strategy. The mind must be treated like a blade. It must be sharpened, rested, and used with intent. Too much friction dulls it. Too much reaction blunts it. Every unnecessary argument, every indulgent fear, every moment of envy rusts the edge of clarity. The disciplined man polishes his blade daily through silence, reading, and reflection. Reflection is the workshop of accurate thinking. When you reflect, you rise above emotion and view reality from elevation. Perspective is born not from intellect alone, but from distance. Distance gives meaning to detail, as height gives meaning to a mountain. The man who cannot detach cannot see the whole picture. He is lost in the valley of impulse. To master perspective, practice withdrawing your mind from immediacy. When faced with difficulty, ask not, "Why is this happening to me?" but rather, "What law is being revealed here?" Life is not against you. It is instructing you. Each event is a mirror, showing you where emotion still controls you. The moment you stop resenting the mirror, you begin refining the image. The purpose of discipline is not self-punishment, but self-liberation. When your mind is disciplined, the external world loses power over you. You are no longer baited by insult, swayed by praise, or shaken by uncertainty. You become independent of circumstance. That independence is the birth of greatness. Understand this truth. Freedom is not the absence of control. It is the mastery of control. The untrained call discipline a prison, but the wise know it is a throne. The reactive man is enslaved by every passing emotion. The disciplined man commands his emotions as a ruler commands subjects. He may feel anger, but it does not dictate. He may feel fear, but it does not paralyze. He may feel sorrow, but it does not steal his direction. The more you govern yourself, the less the world governs you. The one who is master of his own mind needs no permission, no validation, no reassurance. He acts because he has chosen, not because he was chosen. To achieve this state, you must build what I call mental architecture, a deliberate structure of thought patterns designed to withstand pressure. The weak mind is like a tent. It collapses under every storm. The strong mind is a fortress. It does not prevent the storm, but it endures it. Brick by brick, belief by belief, habit by habit, you must construct this fortress. Each morning of silence adds a stone. Each act of restraint lays another. Each decision to prioritize purpose over impulse strengthens the walls. And within that fortress grows peace, not the fragile peace of comfort, but the invincible peace of control. Control begins where excuses end. The mind that always blames cannot command. The man who externalizes failure remains a child in the realm of destiny. Maturity begins the moment you realize that your emotions are your responsibility. The disciplined mind no longer asks the world to be calm so it can find peace. It learns to be calm so it can direct the world. If you would ascend to mastery, eliminate the phrase, "they made me feel." No one makes you feel anything, you choose your interpretation. To say otherwise is to hand over your sovereignty. Emotion is not forced upon you, it is produced within you. And what is produced within you is under your jurisdiction. Self-command begins with this realization. You are not your feelings, you are their architect. Feelings are the weather of the mind, transient, unpredictable, and outside your control. But your attitude toward them is the climate that you can set by will. To regulate this inner climate, you must engage the discipline of thought substitution. When anger arises, replace it with observation. When fear arises, replace it with curiosity. When doubt arises, replace it with preparation. Thought cannot be eliminated, but it can be redirected. Like water, the flow of attention must be channeled through purpose, or it will flood your mind and drown productivity. And when the storm is greatest, retreat not into panic, but into principle. Principles are the compass of the disciplined. They remain steady when emotion fluctuates. The man without principle reacts. The man with principle responds. Reaction is instinct. Response is intelligence. Principle gives birth to the highest form of courage, not the rash courage of impulse, but the calm courage of conviction. It is not loud, it is steadfast. It is not reckless, it is resolute. It stands when emotion trembles. You must train your subconscious to obey these principles until they become reflex. Repetition is the mother of power. The disciplined mind is not naturally calm. It is trained to be so through constant conditioning. Each time you respond with reason instead of reaction, you engrave mastery into your nervous system. Each repetition makes control more automatic until composure becomes your default state. At that level, what once agitated you now amuses you. What once distracted you now motivates you. You cease to be disturbed by the world because you understand the laws that govern it. The chaos outside no longer enters you. You move through storms untouched, for you have learned that disturbance is a choice. It is this mastery that turns ordinary men into giants, for success is not found in circumstance, but in consistency. And consistency cannot exist without discipline. Discipline cannot exist without detachment. Detachment cannot exist without understanding. The foundation of all power, therefore, is understanding the deep knowing that emotion is temporary, but purpose is eternal. When a man builds his life upon the eternal, he becomes unbreakable. The temporary may collapse, fortune may shift, friends may change, plans may fail, but he remains firm, for his roots are in law, not luck. He knows that every effect follows a cause, and that by aligning his mind with the right causes, he can predict outcomes. He is not surprised by success because he has earned it, nor is he crushed by failure because he understands its law. This understanding produces serenity. And serenity is the highest form of intelligence, for it means you have ceased fighting the inevitable and begun cooperating with it. The wise man does not resist the seasons of life. He adapts and endures. He knows that each season has its work planting, cultivating, harvesting, resting, and he performs it without complaint. The undisciplined chase endless summers. The disciplined honor winter as teacher, for it is in the cold seasons that character grows roots. It is in solitude, hardship, and silence that faith proves itself. The gold of mastery is refined not in comfort, but in fire. To control your inner world is to become a furnace of purpose. Every challenge becomes fuel. Every pain becomes heat for transmutation. Transmutation, the alchemical law of turning base emotion into higher energy, is the secret behind all progress. When frustration arises, the reactive man complains. The disciplined man converts it into focus. When envy arises, the weak man resents. The wise man uses it as inspiration. When rejection strikes, the fearful shrink. The master sharpens his strategy. Nothing is wasted for the man who understands transmutation. Even suffering, when directed, becomes strength. For pain reveals capacity. Where others see limitation, the disciplined see leverage. Life's pressure either breaks you or forges you. The choice lies in your inner chemistry. You must train your mind to see adversity not as punishment, but as purification. Every trial burns away dependence, pride, and weakness, leaving behind the essence of power. The man who has faced loss, failure, and isolation without losing his calmness becomes ungovernable. He has tasted the limits of pain and found himself beyond them. Such a man cannot be bought by comfort or broken by difficulty. His peace is not fragile because it does not depend on circumstances. It depends on consciousness. Consciousness is the true wealth of the disciplined. Money, titles, recognition, these are effects. Consciousness is the cause. When your awareness expands, your results multiply, for you no longer sabotage your own power through emotion. You see reality clearly and act in harmony with its laws. This harmony produces momentum. Every disciplined thought generates movement. Every act of restraint builds pressure. Like a river cutting through stone, calm persistence over time becomes unstoppable. And when that river flows through a mind trained in focus and detachment, it carves pathways toward destiny that no opposition can block. The world may resist, but it cannot deny precision backed by persistence. You must understand that life obeys those who obey law. Law does not bend for emotion. Emotion must bend to law. The law of cause and effect, the law of belief, the law of focus, these are not negotiable. They are the structure of reality itself. Align with them, and success becomes a matter of sequence, not chance. The untrained mind fights law and calls it unfair. The disciplined mind studies law and calls it instruction. The first complains about circumstances, the second commands them. And what is the essence of these laws? Order. Everything that succeeds, succeeds by order. Everything that fails, fails by disorder. Discipline is order applied to thought. Detachment is order applied to emotion. Together they turn chaos into creation. Your mind is the factory of your future. If you allow disorder within, disorder will manifest without. But if you impose order within, the outer world rearranges itself around your design. That is the mystery. Every master has known that the world is malleable to the organized mind. This is why your calendar is sacred. It is not a tool of time management. It is the architecture of order made visible. It is the outer manifestation of inner mastery. When you design your days with intention, you tell the universe that you are a builder, not a drifter. Your time is your testament. Guard it, and you guard your throne. Guard your time as a king guards his crown, for every minute spent without purpose is a fragment of destiny thrown to the wind. The undisciplined man reacts to everything the disciplined man chooses, and in that choice, he becomes powerful. When you protect your calendar, you are not simply organizing hours, you are declaring sovereignty over your own existence. Time is not a tool to manage. It is the altar upon which you shape eternity. The world does not honor the distracted. It bows to those who move with precision. Detachment gives you that precision. It is the quiet strength behind all great builders, the composure that turns storms into strategy. The calm mind sees clearly, acts wisely, and advances steadily. Each moment saved from reaction becomes a reserve of power. Each disciplined hour becomes gold compounded. Success belongs to the one who commands his mornings, directs his mind, and disciplines his emotion. The weak wait for mood, the master moves from mission. The world yields not to those who shout, but to those who stand still in conviction. So protect your calendar like it is gold because it is. Gold can be earned again, time cannot. Every second you guard becomes a soldier of purpose. Every hour you waste becomes an enemy of greatness. Let no triviality invade your sacred hours. Let no emotion command what reason has designed. Move each day as one who knows that destiny favors order, and order favors the disciplined. When you have mastered your time, emotion, and attention, you will no longer chase success. Success will orbit around you. You will speak less, act more, and radiate calm in chaos. For the man who commands himself commands the world. And when your final hour arrives, you will look upon your days not with regret, but with reverence, knowing that you did not waste life reacting, but lived it directing. You will have done what few ever dare. You mastered yourself.